Praying through the storm. Okay, so last week we covered praying through the storm, and tonight we're doing on a Let's Talk night. So we made our shift. It's going to be exciting. You're going to sit around, hopefully, maybe not sit, you might stand, you may lay, I don't know what you're going to do, but you're hanging out together. And we started this whole Jonah series, and personally, I got to tell you, it's been a life-changing thing for me. Now, my life hasn't completely changed because I'm still working on things, and I hope you'll work on things, but Jonah's a big deal. We talked about Jonah, and we talked about identifying your Nineveh. And how do you identify your Nineveh? And there were three things. Is it impossible? Is it unbelievable? And is it unprecedented? This personally challenged me a lot. There are things that I dream about doing, but I'm afraid to do. I'm afraid I'll fail. I'm afraid that people won't like it or won't support it. I'm afraid that I'm not talented enough or capable enough to do it. And so all those things make me kind of hesitate. And I think for a lot of us coming out of the pandemic and the pandemic stress and the pandemic difficulty, even the pandemic loss of family members and friends, I think all that stuff coming out, I think it really has overwhelmed us. And so one of the reasons I've been studying Jonah, and I hope you benefit from it, is because I think Jonah helps the overwhelmed be able to regain faith and restart, to re-enter society and re-enter life. But I think we got to keep in front of us, it's got to be impossible, it's got to be unbelievable, it's got to be unprecedented. You see, Jonah was a complicated man in a complicated story about the human struggle to be spiritual. And God always wants us to be spiritual. That's why he'll put impossible things in front of us, unbelievable things in front of us, unprecedented things. I think too many of us are tempted as Christians to live like we don't have a God. And when we live like we don't have a God, we're afraid of the impossible. We run from it. We're afraid of the unbelievable. We're afraid of the unprecedented. There will be friends of yours, even as you live your life, who will peel off and leave the faith or just want to compromise because they just can't handle the idea of growing spiritually enough to take on and embrace the impossible, the unbelievable, and the unprecedented. And so when we talk about praying through the storm, we're talking about doing just that. We're talking about when you pray through the storm is all of the obstacles. The storm is all of the difficulty. The storm is all of the friction and resistance we face in life that keep us from even thinking about doing anything impossible together. They keep us from thinking about doing anything unbelievable. They keep us from doing anything unprecedented because we're so busy looking and saying, does anyone agree with me? Praying through the storm. See, here's the question. What do you do in the storm? Can you sleep in a storm? That's what Jonah did. Now, I have criticized Jonah for sleeping. And you know what? I realized maybe I was wrong. In Matthew 8:24 in the New Living Translation, guess what it says? There was a fierce storm going on. The apostles were on the water, and the storm was going. And guess what? Jesus was sleeping. Now, I figure if Jesus is sleeping through the storm, if you go back and look at Acts 16, Peter had been arrested. I think he was sleeping in jail, singing and sleeping. And then Jonah's sleeping. And I thought, you know what? Maybe we got to take another look at Jonah. See, I think Jonah could sleep because he knew who and he knew why. He knew who was bringing the storm and he knew why the storm was there. So he knew God was not going to give up on him. Now, a lot of us think God wants to punish him. No, God wasn't punishing him. God was like, Jonah, I told you you're going to Nineveh and you're going to Nineveh. Do you remember that when you were growing up? My mom and dad would say, hey, Russ, take out the garbage. I wouldn't take it out. My parents would say, we asked you to take out the garbage. And I'd be like, oh, I'm doing something right now. They go, you know what? You're not doing something right now. Guess what? You're going to be taking out that garbage. And they would stay on me until I carried all those bags out and put them in the garbage. I think it's important that we understand God is a God of love. God is a God of forgiveness. Not only will he forgive Nineveh, he is patient to give Jonah another chance to fulfill his destiny. He knows, he understands. Yes, Jonah, this is some difficult stuff I'm asking you to do. It's impossible. It's unbelievable. It's unprecedented. But that's who I am. I'm a God of the impossible. I'm a God of the unbelievable. I'm a God of the unprecedented. Too many times we want a God of the settled. We want a God of the safe. We want a God of the secure. We want a God of the selfish. That's not who God is. God's bigger than that. And so the question is, when the storms come in our life, when the difficult things come with our health, when the difficult things come financially, when the difficult things come in our relationships and our marriage with our children, when the difficult things come and our dreams maybe that we had in mind don't come true and God starts guiding us on a different course to do different things, can we sleep? Can we go to bed at night because we know who And we know why. Jonah 1, verse 4. But the Lord hurled a powerful wind over the sea, causing a violent storm that threatened to break the ship apart. Fearing for their lives, the desperate sailors shouted to their gods for help and threw the cargo overboard to lighten the ship. But all this time, Jonah was sound asleep down in the hold. So the captain went down after him. How can you sleep at a time like this? And he shouted that. Get up and pray to your God. Maybe he will pay attention to us and spare our lives. Now guess what? Jonah could sleep during the storm because he knew who and he knew why. But the problem is Jonah wasn't praying during the storm. See, he was confident that God was bringing the storm. And I think he knew God, and he probably thought, well, God's upset, but I'll change his mind, or God's upset and he'll forgive me. But then these sailors had a better heart than Jonah. They recognized the danger. They didn't know who, and they didn't know why. See, a lot of times when we're going through things, even when we can sleep through the storm, we're ignoring the sailors. This story of Jonah is not just about Jonah. It's about a great fish, it's about a great city, and it's about sailors. It's about guys who got caught in the collateral damage of Jonah's unbelief. Have you ever impacted people negatively because you're so negative? Jonah got on a ship with some dudes who were just trying to sail, and he made them have a storm. Have you ever caused a storm in your spouse's life because of how you're doing spiritually? Have you ever caused a storm in your boyfriend or girlfriend's life or your parents' life because of the choices you've made? That's Jonah. And so even though you may say, I believe God is with me, I'm not worried about it, it's all going to work out. Is it working out for the other people? Because these sailors, it wasn't working out. And you know the first thing they did? They shouted to their gods. Because back then, a lot of people had a lot of different gods, just like today. And then they went down, they found Jonah. They go, what in the world are you doing sleeping, dude? What are you doing sleeping? You ought to pray to your God. We know you have a God. Pray to your God. Get up and pray to your God. So what did God say? He gave him a two-step command early on. We learned about that. Get up and go. And now the sailors give him another command. Get up and pray. So God said, get up and go. Jonah didn't go. And so God threw a storm out. And now the sailors, these guys don't even know God. They're like, dude, we don't even know God. And we know you need to get up and pray. Are you kidding me? How can you sleep? So I think Jonah slept because he knew who and he knew why. You ever know that? You know exactly what God thinks. You know exactly how God's going to feel about what you've chosen. And so you're like, well, I'm not going to worry about it. God's just going to have to understand. And the sailor said, I don't think God's understanding too well because we got a storm here. And you know what we're going to cover in our next episode? Praying through the storm specifically. In our next episode, we're going to talk about praying to powerless gods. That's what the sailors do. Praying to the God of Jonah. Praying to stop the storm and believing in the impossible. We're going to cover those in the next episodes. So I hope you'll look forward to it. Jonah's awesome. I hope you're enjoying it. Have a great Let's Talk night, and we'll see you again next week.